So there's a service out there called Shudder. And if you don't know, for horror fans, Shudder is probably a gold mine. My understanding is that it is a video on demand service, something like Netflix or Amazon Prime, that houses mostly horror films, some supernatural thrillers, things like that. I bring it up because I've seen the name pop up on different films. I've heard other people on the internet talk about Shudder, and at least for the ones I've seen, there seems to be a common thread in the look of some of the more recent films that Shudder has access to. One of which I'd like to talk about today, and that movie is Azrael. Let's talk about it. This was a movie I knew zero about. And I think what got me to watch it was the poster. That was it. I think the one I saw had Samara Weaving on the cover, and she was bloody, and that was it. I might have read a description about it. I knew it was post-apocalyptic, and it had something to do with the rapture, but that was about it. So I was like, yo, let's watch it. So I watched it, and I thought this movie was very fascinating. It deals with the rapture, or it deals with life following the rapture. Those people who are left behind in the rapture have to fend for themselves. But the unique thing about this, well, one of the main unique things about this movie is that the people we're following are speechless, so they don't speak. It has something to do with sinning. If you talk, speaking is a sin. So Azrael is part of a community of people who have had their vocal cords surgically removed, so they don't have to worry about the sin of speech. And when the movie begins, we meet Azrael and her partner. Looks like they're foraging for food, or they're looking for something out in the wilderness. And again, there's no speaking. So the movie drops us in, and we just have to figure out what's happening. It becomes clear pretty quickly that somebody's after them, and they got to get away. And so we're immediately thrown into the situation where there's some tension and suspense about what's happening. And you wonder whether or not she and her partner are going to make it out. Long story short, they get captured. And Azrael has to then figure out how to either save him and break out again so they can escape, and then ultimately survive. This is a world they're living in where it's really about survival. What we understand is that the community that they're a part of, they believe a certain religion, whatever this new religion is. They believe in a certain religion that's not specified. We don't know what it is, but we know it's led by a woman, and there's a community of people that are mostly women. There are some men involved as well, but a woman is a spiritual leader, and she is pregnant. And that's significant because the movie has a mythology that it's almost like the Christ narrative, where you have someone. What we know about Christ is a similar situation here, but it's darker. It's the opposite of that Antichrist mythology, if you will. And it's really interesting. Also, the other threat is we have a group, an entity, some species of creature called like the burned ones, which the movie, I don't know if it's clear. I can't remember how clear it is, but I think it seems like the burned ones were formerly humans who probably got burned in the rapture. It's not clear, but in any event, they are creatures that hunt humans for their blood and stuff. And so that's also the threat. You have this community of people who are trying to kill people, or really they're after people who escape the compound. And it seems clear that Azrael was a member of this community, and her partner had probably escaped. So naturally, members of the group were trying to get them back. So they have to deal with that and the burned ones, who are like zombie-like monsters, and they're quite it's quite serious. It's quite compelling. So that's what we got going on. Off the top, the most interesting thing about this movie is the fact that it's taking place. This is an action horror thriller situation. So many things have to be explained just by what we see. We don't have everything we're not handheld or force-fed information. We're just dropped in and we have to just figure it out as the story goes along. The one thing we do get is the movie is broken into sections, and there are quotes or things that sort of tee us up for what's going to happen in this next section. And so that's all we have. And they're quotes or scriptures from whatever religious text that this group is following. And it's kind of cool. It puts us in this mindset of that particular world that has its own. I likened it to something like the Seraphites. And if you know The Last of Us Part 2, that game, and to some extent the show doesn't really get too deep in the specifics and of the religion, but it's kind of like that. This movie gives us a little bit more. We have drawings on the wall of a church that is essentially the depiction of this story of Christ, or this world's Christ, some version of that, or this world's chosen child, I'll call it. There's wall pictures displaying that story, and then we get some scriptures, and that's kind of cool. We don't need like the full scope. It's just enough to give us a sense of what the religion feels like and how it's not that different from what we understand as Christianity. It's this other thing that feels like maybe it riffs on Christianity. We don't know necessarily how long it's been since the rapture, but it's been years after the rapture, and the world is in decay. And as far as we know, most of the people we see don't speak. There is one person who we see who does speak. We don't know where he comes from, but he, to me, serves as an example of another type of survivor in the wider world who is on his way somewhere. We don't know where he's going, but Azrael meets him and he agrees to help her. The point of that is that the movie gives us a sense of world building that's not overly done. It's just enough to give us a sense of something else that's happening that may be going on outside of the confines of the story that we have. And I think that was pretty neat. The other thing that's cool about it is the effects. It has some really rich, really serious practical effects on display. The gore it's quite serious. It's right up there with some of the more intense sequences you might see in other horror films. So if that's your deal, this movie has some of that. It's got also some good action too, some good solid action. Now, Samara Weaving is she doesn't seem as imposing, but it doesn't take away from the wins that she does get, because you figure she's living in this post-apocalyptic society. She's probably learned a few things when she's in that world. It's a rough and tumble world that she's living in, and she's had to probably figure things out. There are a couple instances where it feels like, come on, man, how believable is that? Because she's not a big person, but the movie does give us a sense of how she has to use her wits, use her surroundings, anything at her disposal to win whatever scenario she might find herself in. The movie is not long. It's about 85 minutes or so. It's in and out. And I think that's a benefit to the film. It's economical in its storytelling. And the fact that there's very little dialogue probably helps. But even if that weren't the case, I think the fact that it's such a straight shot, it's a very clear story, and that works. It's just long enough. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Yeah, it's just long enough for a unique type of film situation. And it's kind of cool. I found it interesting, the character name of Azrael in a film like this, where it's obviously dealing with some version of Christ or Antichrist or whatever it is. And thinking about what Azrael is in other religions, that name, that character is viewed as the angel of death in some religions. Now, you could make a case that she lives up to that name, but that's not really what she's about. I just think there's something cool that I think the film knows what it's doing, what it's playing with regard to spiritual and religious motifs. That the fact that the movie is called Azrael, and your lead character is called Azrael. There's something to that. Not quite sure fully what it is, but there's something about that that I thought was interesting. Some sources have Azrael as a servant of God, and others have Azrael as a fallen angel that serves Satan. And I think that particular version of service to Satan is the one that seems like where this film leads. Again, of course, the movie doesn't clarify, but given where things end up, either this Azrael in the movie is a servant, or she's a guardian, or what. You don't know. You don't know if she's going to become a leader. But I think that's also one of the cool things about this movie, because how it ends, it leaves the door open for interpretation as to what role she's going to play in the future of this society post-rapture. How important a figure is she going to be? She goes from this quiet, obviously silent protagonist to someone who has to fight her way out of the different conflicts to stay alive. And then she goes head to head with the other humans. She goes head to head with some of the burned ones, and has to get through all of that to then have a final confrontation with a woman named Miriam, who is the leader of this spiritual cult. Obviously, this woman has a lot of power. She's expecting a baby, and that's something significant in the story, but also in the context of the future of this group and the world at large, or whatever it is. So, what role is Azrael going to play in all that? It's actually really cool, the questions it asks, and it's entertaining. So, if you're looking for something unique, something different, and something without not a lot of talking, not a lot of exposition, give Azrael a shot. I found it was on Hulu. I'm pretty sure it's still there. I would recommend it if you're a horror fan, give it a shot. If you like something that's more, action driven, I think you'll find something in this movie for you. Or if you're a Samara Weaving fan, she's excellent in this movie. She does a tremendous amount of sound acting without talking. She has to do a lot of expression, and she's very good. I mentioned at the top of this video the common thread in the look of films under the Shudder banner, or Shudder films that are housed on the Shudder service. And I don't know what this is. I don't know if there is actually even really a common look. There's something that I've noticed of the few films I've seen that also happen to be housed on Shudder, and that is the sharpness in the cinematography. There's something about how things are photographed that it is feels very sharp and distinct in its sharpness. It's not that it's just it's shot digitally, so there's not any softness or warmth to some of the shots. That's not true, I think. But there's something that feels distinct in it, like meaning the colors are saturated in certain sequences. And I've seen this across several movies, but I think particularly for this movie, you're dealing with a story that takes place mostly at night. There are a couple daytime sequences and stuff that you see. And also, everything's happening in the woods. This is another thing I've seen. I think there's at least two other Shudder films that I've seen where the bulk of the action takes place in the woods, and the detail on screen is pretty sharp. Like it pops. Like those trees, it's almost like 3D. Not quite, but to me anyway, it feels very three-dimensional. Like it feels like it's popping out of the screen. Every leaf, every tree branch, every weapon. If someone's fighting a sword, something is like, it's like in your face. And so I don't know what that's about. It's not necessarily a good thing or bad thing. It's something that I observed in the visuals. And while I'm there, I'll also mention that the cinematography, just in general, is quite strong. There's a really lovely shot in this movie where Azrael is under a bridge and there's like some water running through, like a river or a stream, something going through. And this is one of the few daytime shots, and she's trying to stay out of sight of one of the burned ones who is on her trail, and it's really nicely shot. Also, there's a fire sequence where things get out, things are burned, and that's also beautifully shot. It feels very alive. It's very well photographed. Like, just logistically, you know where everybody is in relation to each other. The action isn't out of control where you don't know what's going on. You can't see. You're not guessing at where certain threats are. It's pretty well done. Yeah, I recommend the movie. So if you stuck around to the end of this video, I appreciate you taking the time. If you've seen this movie, let me know. I haven't talked to a lot of people who've seen it, but I'm curious to know if anyone else has seen it, what you think about it. Because it'd be really cool to have a discussion about that. Because I found it really interesting. Something I just watched on a whim, randomly, not really expecting too much from it, but I was thrilled, and I liked just the world building, and I liked it just from a storytelling perspective. It was pretty cool. So if you're curious, give it a shot. But that's going to do it for this movie. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next video.